people working in a building where toxic waste was disposed and they were never told before signing up to rent. News 4's Chris Glorioso investigates what some are calling a toxic lie.
Artists, nonprofit managers, and fitness instructors fill the hallways of this Harlem building every day. They rent workspaces here, but they were never told those workspaces are part of a toxic Superfund site. You would never know it, though, if you searched this address. It is a Harlem building that takes up an entire Fifth Avenue block.
Come on, keep moving, keep moving. Come on, one more.
Inside, Sin Martinez is one of dozens of commercial tenants. He rents space for a fitness center.
No sympathy for me.
His clients like to sweat. And business is getting hot, but there's a problem.
There you go.
When Sin signed his rental agreement, he had no idea the building is contaminated with potentially carcinogenic vapors. Not the kind of air health-conscious gym rats want to breathe. Decades ago, an industrial laundry business contaminated the building with PCE, a dry cleaning solvent connected to liver problems and cancer. Would you have ever rented space here if you knew this was a Superfund site?
No, they didn't say anything about air quality at all.
Back in 1998, the State Department of Environmental Conservation declared the property a Class II Superfund site. That means hazardous waste was disposed here for 24 years, and there's currently a significant threat to the public health or the environment.
The building is toxic.
Albert Elkerson was the first tenant to discover signs of the environmental hazards. After the landlord sued him in an effort to remove him from the premises, Elkerson researched the pipes sprouting through the hallway floors, barrels filled with mysterious material, and the air monitor installed in his garage. Shortly after, Elkerson organized a meeting of tenants. None of them knew the building's toxic history.
I had no idea at all. I just was like, well, sometimes I smell weird stuff from the vents. Oh, it's an old building. You sort of just ignore it.
It was a particular type of smell, like very, very sweet. Yeah, but also very, almost dizzying in a way.
Do you think the landlord had the responsibility to tell you this was a contaminated site?
Most certainly.
You feel like you were lied to?
It was an aggressive lie.
Court records list Joseph Carton as owner of both the Superfund building and its primary tenant, a company called Harlem Self-Storage. When we visited Carton's office, we found the Superfund site's address on a sign outside the front door. When an employee saw our camera focusing on that sign, he promptly ripped it down and threw us out. So how could a landlord rent space in a contaminated Superfund site without disclosing the toxic vapor to all the tenants? A statement from the Department of Environmental Conservation suggests there's a loophole in the law. Although owners must notify their primary tenants of air quality tests, most of the workers in this building rent as subtenants of the Harlem Storage Company.
Come on, keep moving, keep moving.
That would mean even though Joseph Carton owns the storage company, even though he was aware of the toxic vapors, he may have been exempt from a state law which requires landlords disclose air quality tests in 12-point type on rental agreements. The I-Team obtained this rental agreement, which makes no mention of the toxic vapors.
It's more about them covering themselves now.
After Albert Elkerson started demanding answers, he says he noticed a fact sheet from the DEC appeared on this cluttered bulletin board. Elkerson says he might have discovered the building's Superfund status on his own just by searching the original address, 2350 Fifth Avenue. But look at this rental agreement. It says 2340 Fifth Avenue. And look over the building's main entrance. The original address appears to have been covered over here.
We were under the impression that we were at 2340 Fifth Avenue. And that was what was on my lease, on everybody else in the building's lease. It's been some real crooked business.
An attorney for building owner Joseph Carton had no comment for this story. By the way, aside from that loophole that allows subtenants to be treated differently from primary tenants, there's another technicality that helps landlords hide toxic air tests. A DEC spokesperson told us that law requiring notification on leases, it's not enforceable until after site cleanup has been done. Of course, that leaves renters in the dark for the decades it sometimes takes for environmental remediation to commence. Now, coming up tomorrow, we've got some tough questions for the DEC. We're just asking some questions on behalf of these residents in Harlem.
And a lot of you have been talking about this story one day after the I-Team exposed a landlord for failing to tell renters his building was contaminated, and now the state is making changes to its policies. News 4's I-Team's Chris Glorioso joins us with a follow-up to his exclusive. Chris?
Well, Tom, just a short time ago, the State Department of Environmental Conservation confirmed after our story yesterday, the agency will change its policy and require all tenants be informed by landlords when they rent or sublease space in Superfund sites. Still, a spokesperson for DEC Commissioner Joseph Martins said he believes the renters in this Harlem building were treated fairly. The renters, they beg to differ. Would you have ever rented space here if you knew this was a Superfund site?
No.
No way. No way wasn't I informed anything about it.
You feel like you were lied to?
It was an aggressive lie.
The I-Team was first to tell you about dozens of people stunned to learn the workspaces they rent are part of a toxic Superfund site.
I'm devastated and appalled.
14 years ago, New York State labeled the Harlem building at 2350 Fifth Avenue a significant threat to public health. Toxic vapors from PCE, a cancer-causing chemical, contaminated the building, and yet these tenants say the owner, Joseph Carton, never told them before they signed rental agreements.
It was a shocking thing. It was a disturbing thing.
Now, after the I-Team report, State Senator Bill Perkins is calling for a Senate hearing. He wants to force the Department of Environmental Conservation to notify renters about Superfund sites, even if landlords don't.
I'm angry that they have to be forced. Come on. Department of Environmental Conservation, okay? This should be #1 concern.
Do you think the DEC failed here?
Yes.
The I-Team has learned personnel from the DEC visited the Harlem building 6 times in the last 5 years, and yet until 3 months ago, the agency was unaware dozens of people were working inside. When we visited DEC headquarters in Albany, a spokeswoman kept our cameras away from the office that regulates Superfund sites.
We're just asking some questions on behalf of these residents in Harlem.
Later, the agency sent an email explaining that owners of the Harlem building were only required by law to notify their direct tenants, because most of these workers signed on as subtenants of a storage company in the building. The owner wasn't forced to tell them.
The law should require, A, that the owner let you know, and that the state needs to intervene directly with tenants in the event that the owner doesn't live up to their obligation.
Through his attorney, landlord Joseph Carton declined to comment for this story. His Harlem building is the only Class II Superfund site in Manhattan, but it is one of more than 170 Class II Superfund sites scattered throughout our region. And if you go to our website, NBCNewYork.com, you can actually link to a map of all of the Superfund sites, Class II, in our region. You can actually expand it out and then click on 1 or 2 of them to get all the information associated with them. The DEC has information about their address, the current use of the building, and the reason why it has been labeled as contaminated. Of course, there is concern tonight that there might be other Superfund sites out there where the renters don't know of the toxic threat.